Hey everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we will be discussing about the create deployment commands in OpsWorks. So again, before we go ahead and understand what these are, let me quickly give you a brush up and how exactly these looks within the OpsWorks console. Now within the OpsWorks console, if you go under the deployments and if I do a deploy an app, there are two commands that are generally available. One is the deploy and second is the undeploy. Now we looked into what deploy and undeploy really means in a very high level overview. Now along with that, there is one more button called as run command, and within run command there are various commands which are available. So one is update custom cookbooks, you have execute recipes, setup, configure and upgrade operating system. So when you talk about the create deployment commands, the create deployment commands basically refers to the commands which are available, which are deploy, undeploy, and also the commands which are part of the run command. So with this overview, let's go ahead and understand more about the create deployment commands. Now basically create deployment commands allows us to run a specific set of commands depending upon the use cases that we have. So create deployment commands are generally categorized into, you have deploy and undeploy, and second you have the stack commands. So stack commands are basically the commands which were available within that once we had pressed that run command button within the window. So when you do a deploy and undeploy, deploy is basically used to deploy a new application within the OpsWorks, and undeploy is basically it reverts the application or it undeploys the application within the OpsWorks console. Now one thing that I wanted to show you is that currently we have one application which is already deployed. So this is the Node.js sample app, and we can actually go ahead and deploy that app, or we can go ahead and undeploy that app. Now one important part to remember is that during the deployment and during the undeployment phase, we do have an option where we can select from which instances we want to deploy, which instances we do not want to deploy it from. So these are the options that which are available to us. So I hope you understood the basics on what the deploy and undeploy commands are all about. So the next thing that we are more have to be focused on the stack commands. So these are the stack commands which we need to understand on what these are all about. So as we have discussed, there are in total of 5 stack commands which are available. So first stack command is update custom cookbook. So this specific would update the instances cookbook with the latest version from the repository. So it might be possible that you have updated the repository where your chef cookbooks are. So if you do update custom cookbook, it will update the instance cookbook with the latest version. Now do remember, during this phase it will not execute that cookbook, it will just update with the latest version. So with the name itself you can know that this will update the cookbook version. The second is execute recipes. Now execute recipes, it basically executes a specified set of recipes on the instance. Now if you want to execute a specific recipe within the EC2 instances, we can do that with the execute recipes command. Third is the setup. Now this would basically run the instances setup recipes again. So whatever setup recipes which are defined, it will go ahead and run those setup recipes. Configure, again we have understood both setup and configure within the lifecycle events. Configure, basically it will run the instances configure recipes. So whatever recipe that you have defined within the configure section would be executed. Last but not the least is the upgrade operating system, which would go ahead and upgrade the operating system to the latest version. Now this is not supported for Windows, it's supported for Linux only. One important part to remember. Now before we conclude the lecture, one more important thing that I wanted to show is that when you talk about deploy and undeploy, so this would go up to 5 versions. So currently OpsWorks stores up to 5 versions within its stacks. So when you want to undeploy or when you want to roll back, you can roll back up to the last 4 versions of the software which was deployed. So that is one important part that you need to understand. So this is it about today's video. I hope this has been informative for you, and in the next video we'll go ahead and understand the auto healing feature of OpsWorks.